Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to round 2 of the ChampCar iRacing series, the sim racing division of the ChampCar Endurance series, and new for 2020, a format where we're using 3 different cars at different rounds across our 16-round season. Round 1 was with VIR Road Atlanta with the 2015 Mazda MX-5 NC Cup car. We come to round 2 here at Sonoma Raceway, and we switch to the slightly older, slightly less powerful, but maybe slightly nimbler Pontiac Solstice to replicate the many different cars that are used in the ChampCar Endurance series. Again, though, a 1-hour race ahead of us. Qualifying underway right now, a 1-hour session with just a few minutes left in it. And of course, there are 2 prizes up for grabs in ChampCar iRacing series this year. There is the Points Champion prize, and thinking about that one, DJ Alessandrini is in the driver's seat for that one as our points leader, closely followed in second place by John D. Allen and third place Alex Albert. Those 3 drivers here again at round 2, looking to pick up some big points to foster their chances of winning that free entry into a ChampCar Endurance Series race in the 2021 season. But also, new for the 2020 season, a equal value prize to be drawn randomly amongst the competitors who complete 11 rounds minimum of this championship, 12 rounds minimum of this championship. So a lot of drivers out here, 33 or 34 I see for today's race, and if they complete at least half distance and are scored finishes in this race, they'll be one step closer to being in that raffle for that very, very worthwhile prize indeed. So for the coverage of this race tonight, I'm David Haynes. Alongside me, I'm going to have the man from up north, Devin Peters. And Devin, you've driven in ChampCar before. You're very familiar with iRacing. What are you looking for in this race?
I'm liking the weather out here today, about 80 degrees warmer than where I'm from. But I'm thinking that the Solstice is a really good match for Sonoma. Nice big straightaways where you can really get that draft going. And they won't be hurt by the fact that this isn't the GXP version of the car with 260 horsepower. This is the much more mundane Slowstice version that allows for a lot of racing, a lot of good beating and banging. So I think we'll have a really tight battle at the front, and I'm looking forward to it.
And speaking of that tight battle at the front, you can see your qualifying times there. Paul Darling on the top of the times right now, and DJ Alessandrini, your points leader, right behind him by a couple of tenths. Chris DeShong has had a good showing, same too for Justin Hall. And Kevin Binkley looking at 5th place right now. So it's well jumbled up there compared to our order in round 1. And I think that's something we're going to see throughout this championship this year with the changing of cars from some rounds to some rounds. We'll be using the Mazda MX-5, sometimes commonly known in North America as the Miata, at some of the tracks that suit it well. Some of the slower, twistier circuits will be using this Pontiac Solstice. Then we come to some of the circuits in the calendar like Auto Club Speedway or Daytona that are big, wide open. We'll be using the street stock for its horsepower, but less grip and more primitive brakes and tires. So cars to suit the circuits is what we're going to have throughout this championship. But let's switch to the Pontiac Solstice for round 2 here. Might shuffle up the order, keep things very, very interesting indeed. Only a couple seconds left of qualifying, and what we've seen is the track temperature and that California sun continuing to rise means that a lot of the quick times are actually set early in this session, and the grip tapering off a little bit towards the end. So I haven't seen any times lighting up the screens in the end here, but there's now 2 minutes 30 left on the clock for the drivers out on circuit to complete their flying laps and see if maybe they can improve. And the fastest man out there coming towards the line, John D. Allen, but I'm not sure how he's doing on this particular lap. But very shortly, Devin, we are going to be able to run down that grid. Only a couple cars still out there.
Yeah, and some new names here. I mean, we did not see Paul Darling at the first point scoring round, but if he's going to show up and put down laps like that for the whole season, he's going to be a real threat to DJ and Alex, who've been who really lit it up in the first.
Yeah, exactly. 16 rounds to this championship, but your best 12 points rounds count to your standing. And likewise, you need 12 rounds completed to be in that draw for that extra free entry into a Champ Car Endurance Series, which I believe is capped in value up to 1,500 US dollars, which is very, very helpful indeed if you're either a driver wanting to get into some wheel-to-wheel endurance racing. You can take those Champ Car bucks to a team and save yourself a lot of money on some seat time, or probably get an entire ride for that, I suspect. Or if you're an existing Champ Car team, you'll know the value of a free entry into a round of your choosing. Could really help you with your budget for a season, or expand to doing an extra race in a season. 1 minute left in qualifying. The only man I see out on circuit, Lee Mullerman, at least owner or co-owner of Daring Greatly Racing. So he'll be looking for that participation that could help him out. He's currently 12th on the grid, and I'm not sure if he'll find a time to improve. John D. Allen also on his flying lap was a couple seconds off his best. So I think the track temperatures will definitely be a story in this race. Also, when we come time for the pit stop, if indeed I'm seeing there will be one, whether or not drivers take tires at the pit stop, always an interesting point of contention, and it definitely was something that mattered in round one.
Yeah, and we'll definitely need a pit stop at this race today, I think. But it'll be interesting to see, with the track being as hot as it is, if the drivers decide that maybe they need to take two, or if maybe they need to take all four at the stop. So there'll be some definite decisions to be made once they get out on track. Looks like we're about to jump to the grid here.
Indeed, the drivers will form up on the grid for our rolling start, and this is the order it will be. We said Paul Darling on pole, and that remains true with a 1 minute 51.276. He set, I believe, pretty early in the session. Second place going to be DJ Alessandrini, joining him on the front row. Next row, Chris DeShong and Justin Hall. Kevin Binkley there in fifth. Alex Albert, your defending champion, will start at sixth place on the third row, but he's a wily competitor, and I expect he might be able to make up some spots. John D. Allen, last season's runner-up, right behind him in seventh. Max Lupfer in eighth. Then we've got Nicholas Johnston in ninth. Bradley Daly in 10th. We'll count a little bit further down our grid as well, because Alex Coffard qualified in 11th. Lee Mullerman, I mentioned already, in 12th there. Very close between those two drivers. Paul Johnson then in 13th. Thomas Ellison in 14th. And we thank him for the work he does in organising this league as well. Very much appreciated by all of our competitors. Matthew Thompson, 15th. Chris Nisley in 16th. Paul Wildridge, 17th. Nicholas Love, 18th. 19th going to be Benjamin Shout. And 20th is Shane Cameron. We're going to have a full pace lap here, so I think we will have time to look down the remaining grid as well. Devin, can you take it from 21st?
For sure. We've got Drew Cleaver in 21st, first person in the 54s, but still close enough time-wise that he ought to be able to make a battle for the top 10 if he's consistent out there. Mitch Robertson and Andrew Shembry. Behind them, Michael Ogren. Jordan Babcock, devoted Steelers fan, and I think he's repping that on his livery today. Jacob Hillier and Thomas Dyer are in 26th and 27th. We've got Danny Robinson in 28th, and the last man to set a time, James Wolak, in 29th. We do have a few folks gridding up here that did not set a time, and that can sometimes be a strategy in these really big fields. So we've got Andrew Fawcett in 30th. Cameron DeGroff in 31st, Skylar Sisson in 32nd, and Jackson Johnson in 33rd as they roll off. A few names to mention that we heard on the way through and to keep in mind when we're thinking about the points race. As we mentioned, DJ Alessandri is leading the points with John D. Allen in second. I'm seeing John in 7th place right now. Alex Albert, who's gridded up in 6th place, is 3rd in the points, with Kevin Binkley, who's qualified 5th, in 4th in the overall points, and Alex Crawford, who didn't have as good a performance in qualifying, at least, as he did in the first race. He's lined up in 11th. So some names that are definitely in contention, and all of our top 5 present and making sure that this isn't going to be a drop week for them.
Yeah, indeed. Weather was a bit of a mixed bag in qualifying, pretty cold at the start and then got hotter through the session. So I think getting out there at the right time in the session was very beneficial. And some drivers who maybe weren't there at the start of the session, who I think will certainly be able to race their way up towards the front. The Ford Mustang pace car that we've got is ripping around the circuit, and our Pontiac Solstices are keeping up. We are maybe 2/3 of the way around that lap before we get racing. So strong grid once again. Looking forward to some strong racing here again. And as you mentioned, all of our points competitors in this one.
Back in 27th, we actually had a little drama. Thomas Dyer spinning on the qualifying. Looks like he'll be taking the start from the pit lane with a little bit of damage, but I believe is there a fast repair in this race, Haynes?
To my understanding, there ought to be. So Thomas Dyer, I don't think he's ruled out of this race, but it's definitely going to be at minimum a pit lane start for him. Long trip on the tow hook, though. Pace car is in. Paul Darling leads them through that final hairpin. And when will he put the power down? He's waiting. He's waiting for the green flag to be shown. And now it is. Now he gets going, but the whole pack very, very much checked up. Ooh. Contact! Alessandrini is around. Who was that in the red and white car that helped him? Paul Darling checking up the field, and our points leader right at the green flag is in the wall. Those concrete barriers that line the start-finish here. Paul Darling really, really checking up the field at the start, and that has caused some mayhem for some of our competitors. I see John D. Allen down 7 places as well. Chris DeShong down 13. What a start there, Devin.
Yeah, and there was someone upside down on the start-finish line. Looks like DJ managed to get it going without having to tow, which is a big deal. But that car is not handling well. He's going to have to limp it back to the pits and hope that he can make up some time taking fuel early.
Yeah, indeed. We'll take a second look at that start right now, because that has been hugely influential on this race. I mean, you see a bit of a checkup from Paul Darling right at the start. He doesn't put the power down as the green flag is displayed. DJ gets a better run on the outside, but doesn't quite want to pass before the start-finish line. And that driver off the second row puts their nose between the two. There isn't quite room, and the mirror ball finish of DJ Alessandrini goes spinning.
Yeah, and there's some really solid racing going on in the pack all the way down. John D. Allen and Nicholas Love are side by side through the S's, and they're not the only ones. These drivers are going to have to keep in mind that there's still 54 minutes left in this race, and they got to make it all the way to the end.
Yeah, indeed. John D. Allen, a lot of damage on that car. He was kind of involved in that first lap dramas there, so he's now down in 14th, trying to make up a bunch of spots where he can. He's actually going to dive right onto pit lane because he's decided that damage is just a little bit too much for him. So your updated order there, Paul Darling still leading, Justin Hall up into 2nd, Max Lupfer, huge gains from 8th place now into 3rd, and then Alex Albert is in 4th, Nicholas Johnston in 5th. So we said that qualifying might have been a bit of a mixed bag, but the race has been an even bigger mixed bag there, Devin.
Yeah, for sure. And it looks like some of the drivers that got out early may have out-qualified their wheel-to-wheel experience. Some of our viewers, though, might be wondering why we didn't go to a full course caution there. Just so they know, this is in the iRacing simulator, and in the iRacing simulator, the option is available to turn on full course cautions, but in this series, we actually only run with local yellows. So the drivers were expected to lift there, but at the start finish line, as soon as they cleared that accident, they could get right back to racing. So it is exciting, and it's okay in the virtual world, of course, but it may have caused some people that are more used to racing in the ChampCar series to maybe lift a little bigger than the guys who've spent more time behind a screen and less time behind a windshield.
Battle for second here, Devon. Max Lutfer put it down the inside of Justin Hall at the hairpin, and now Lutfer runs a little bit wide through these back S's. He's all the way out of sorts, and Justin Hall's going to try and take that second place back. Wheel to wheel they go, and I think Hall is going to get that back, but Max Lutfer from qualifying 8th is really trying to race his way up there, and this battle for second is going to continue. Hall's going to come in a little deep into the final hairpin, and Alex Albert, the wily competitor, sees an opportunity to put his nose through into second place now. So those guys battling so hard over second have just cost each other. Albert going to jump on through, and Nicholas Johnston still a part of that party, but what it has allowed is Paul Darling to build a 1.4 second gap for the lead, so he'll be very happy to see that. He's trying to get away as far as he can, but it is a fierce competition in the top 5 right now for where the meat of the points is. There's also a bit of a train from 6th place where Tom Ellison is trying to keep Alex Coffard and Bradley Daly at bay, and well, with how aerodynamically slipstream dependent these cars can kind of become, you gain a lot following behind someone else. There is definitely some draft packs that would form up even at a circuit here like Sonoma. The battle for second continues though, because second through to 5th are not giving anyone an inch. Albert's going to hold on to second, but Lutfer is back past Hall. In fact, they're side by side coming down the hill in the infield, and it's going to come down to who's got the momentum in the inside line down towards one of these series of hairpins, Devon.
Yeah, and you can see definitely a few of the drivers that are a little more experienced racing these momentum cars. They're really committing to staying in line, and at this point in the race, that's probably going to be a good choice. Trying to keep up with those folks out in front. I'll also touch back on Chris DeShong in 12th place at the start of this lap. Anyway, I think he's up to 11th now in the field. He had that drama at the start of the race, got a little caught up in our upside down adventure on lap 1, but he's managed to cut his losses to only 8 seconds, and he's staying out of trouble. I think he's going to get a hold of this pack that's formed from 8th.
Contact in the battle for second, and a big sideways moment from Max Lutfer. I think he got a little bit of help from behind there. Justin Hall apologizing for his role in that. Again, this helps Paul Darling get away. This helps Alex Albert get away. Now, Nicholas Johnston's got his nose in it and might just roll out of it. So Lutfer holds on to third. These cars, I think they can take a little bit of fender rubbing, but you want to be careful making too much contact.
Yeah, they're a little bit deceiving because you can make a fair amount of contact at the slow speeds that they take through the corner without getting penalized too heavily. But one wrong hit on the wheel, and all of a sudden your steering wheel's pointed 15 degrees to the left or the right, and she's not driving quite as fast as she was before. So I think everyone has kept that in mind, at least after our incidents on the first lap there.
Take a look at 6th place, because Alex Coffard is hunting the nose around, sniffing for a way past Tom Ellison, who is, I think, just running his lines, and that's making him quite difficult to pass. You can be a little bit slower, but so long as you're consistent, it's going to be difficult for someone to get around you. So there's that train of 6. Tom Ellison, like I say, Coffard behind him, Bradley Daly right up behind there, closes a whole lot in the braking zone, and Lee Mullerman and Chris Knisley. So a lot of irregular Champ Car competitors and names we see in the Champ Car iRacing series in this little battle. Certainly 5 gentlemen that we saw last season as well. So familiar with this series, but of course, this is the first round Champ Car iRacing series has ever run with the Pontiac Solstice, so that makes a little bit of a change as well. So Ellison still leading the pack, and it comes to one of the couple of solid braking zones, which are the big overtaking opportunities around this circuit. And this final hairpin near the pit complex does not feel like Alex Coffard is close enough, and if anything, he's defending from Bradley Daly behind. So when you're in the middle of one of these packs, I think it can be rather difficult. You're looking at how you could pass the person in front. If you step out of line and hurt your own momentum, then you're vulnerable to the driver behind trying to make a move on you.
Yeah, and with these Solstice, there's a lot of different ways to make lap times, and so you'll see some people that, it feels like they're flying at your bumper as you get into the corners, and that's just how they're making their lap times. And then other folks, well, they're they're trying to focus on braking a little earlier maybe, but getting to the throttle earlier as well. And so the different driving styles will lead to a lot of tension in some of these tight battles that can be exacerbated. Oh, as we see a big dive bomb that I was talking about there.
Lee Mullerman going
Yeah.
for a look at Bradley Daly, and it didn't quite work out. In the next corner being a left-hander, I think Daly will slot back into line. And again, that costs both of those guys time to Thomas Ellison and Alex Coffard. At the pointier end of the field, though, Nicholas Johnston's picked his way up to second place.
Yeah,
I'll take a look there. Still side by side with Alex Albert as they come into braking zone sort of at the bottom of the hill at the back of the circuit. So Johnston now up into second, and it checks up this train of cars once again. And I think they're almost at risk of falling back towards that battle for sixth place too. So it's proving difficult to race in a pack in these cars if the drivers around you don't want to cooperate. Johnston's done well up into second, got Alex Albert in third behind him. Max Lupfer in fourth. Justin Hall's fallen back to fifth, but you know, what's that when you can still see the guy in second right in front of you, still 50 minutes to go in the race?
Yeah, Max Lupfer is not content to just sit around though. He pushed really hard for a minute there behind Nicholas, but he wants to be up at the front of the grid. That's clear as he dives on Alex there into the hairpin. Looks like Alex got a better run out of the corner though now, so let's see if they can get in line and maybe challenge Paul.
Yeah, indeed. Lots of moves trying to happen into that final hairpin, that lap around. My timing screen was a bit lit up. A couple of drivers onto pit road as well. Lee Mullerman onto pit road early. I wonder if there's been damage for him. Same true for Chris DeShong, who had a maybe almost 2 electric start. So field spreading out just a little bit. Still a lot of solid packs out.
Yeah, looking at DeShong as he rolls into the pits, he's got a pretty ugly front quarter, but luckily in iRacing, that's just a checkbox to fix that. No hammers required, and it looks like he's taking his full stop for fuel. He's going to be sitting at the back of the pack for a while, but we might see him towards the end if this early fuel strategy pays off.
Yeah, indeed. So Justin Hall in 5th place, and he's looking at that battle in front of him where Lupfer gets a bit deep into the hairpin, gets a little bit of a bump from Alex Albert for good measure as well. And these guys are going to want to tone that down if they're going to make the full hour. It's so far so good from all of these guys in this pack. It's just been a little bit of fender rubbing here and there, no big mistakes, no huge contacts, but Hall can kind of see Nicholas Johnston almost getting away, and Paul Darling definitely has. His lead is now out to 2.8 seconds, so he's just being pretty consistent there. There's a few places around here that it's easy to run off onto some of the grass and the dust. Johnston did that just a little bit, and again, a little tap. A little bit of Morse code from Alex Albert to Max Lupfer, who maybe likes to slow the car up a bit earlier, turn a bit pointier, and maybe get on the throttle earlier. As you said, different ways to drive this car, and there's certainly some who seem to be taking big, smooth, arcing lines, and others who just seem to bomb it into the corner, somehow get it stopped, turn it on a dime, and then try and power off the corner. So you are seeing some different lines out there, and maybe it's leading to a bit of tension.
Yeah, Nicholas Johnston's just put in a qualifying lap there that last time through, though, a 52.1. He's gonna take a chunk out of Paul Darling if he keeps that sort of speed up, and you can see it already. He's cut that gap pretty substantially from what it was. These guys behind him, they better take notice, because if they keep fighting that, they're going to lose track of him pretty quick here.
Yeah, definitely seeing that. Johnston almost making that little breakaway, but he's still just within 1 second of Max Lupfer. But again, this tension between Lupfer and Albert is costing them each a little bit of time. And last lap around, Johnston was half a second faster than Paul Darling. So he's a man on a mission, no doubt, right now. Some interesting names we're seeing popping up now that we're in a car that drives slightly differently, needs some slightly different talents. I'm now excited for the rest of the races in this season, especially when we get to that street stock, because that is an entirely different beast all to its own. A V8 engine and not all of the facilities to control it easily. So that'll lead itself to its own driving style as well. I think to be champion this year, you're going to need to be a bit of a jack of all trades.
Yeah, there is a battle heating up back here, 15th through 19th. These guys are going too wide through all the S's and really pushing each other. Um, but yeah, this car is a different car to drive. And you know, you might think, oh, two-seat roadster, hey, it's just another Miata, right? But being down on power and up on weight, it it takes really fine management of the balance of the car. So you really have to make sure that you are trailing the brakes, getting that nose weighted up, and getting those grip circles going as James Wallock smacks the wall there on the exit of the corner. That's an easy thing to do in this car because it's if you don't keep the weight on the nose, it wants to understeer, and that's the classic slow or solstice condition. Excuse me.
Yeah, so Warlock just manages to hold on to that position, but there is a train right behind him, as you say. Nicholas Love right there. Kevin Binkley, who was like our fifth place qualifier, finds himself back in this pack for 18th, and I'm sure he'd want to make a bit more progress as he sees some of the evil Knievel effects from Nicholas Love, who then goes in very, very deep. So that's a position for well, a couple of these drivers are gonna grab one. That is a tough braking zone there. I'm seeing a couple cars go wide, so Love's gonna lose 2 spots to Binkley and Paul Wildridge in this one. Wildridge in the red machine, taking the title line through this long, long downhill left-hander. If he can get good momentum off this corner, where it's absolutely critical for the run down to this little sort of two apex hairpin. It's been a bit of an overtaking zone in this race. Whoa, who's around in the background there? 2 cars in the wall. Is it Mitchell Robertson and Jordan Babcock potentially? I'm going to have to take a second look at that.
While we're looking at that replay, I'll just mention
Mitchell Robertson and Jordan Babcock side by side there, and Robertson's swinging over towards the left where the racing circuit goes, and Babcock's trying to pinch him a bit tight, and the two of them make contact, swing around, and I think both of them ended up in the wall there, and
Babcock's got a fair amount of front end damage there. It's slowing him down through the S's. I think he'll probably be pitting this time. But behind them and enjoying the carnage in front of them, I've got to imagine DJ, after that early upside down incident, is actually running some pretty sneaky fast laps there. He just ran a 51.5, I think, on the last lap. A 52.5, sorry. But that's competitive with the guys at the front. So once again, if they're getting caught up battling and not taking advantage of that draft, he could come back and have an effect on this race.
Yeah, certainly Alessandrini currently a minute 19 seconds off the lead, but having taken a pit stop, fully repaired that car, and in theory fuel to get to the end. So he's definitely not out of it. The pace that he's running and expecting everyone in front of him to still need a pit stop as well. I think that's the kind of attitude you're going to need to be a champion in this series. Is, you know, head down and just work to that result at the end.
Yeah, well, and with the amount of traffic, you know, it's really good to see the huge participation that we've got here. I mean, what other series are you going to find 33 Solstice racing on a Wednesday night? I mean, this is great stuff. After the first 20 minutes here, we got Paul Darling coming up to the line, and we've got you know, a respectable race going on up front, about 5 seconds, stretching. We're covering Paul. 2 seconds back to Nick, another second back to Max, and another couple seconds back to Alex and Justin, who seem to be working together a little bit. So
Alex Coffard from 6th place has jumped onto the pit lane, and I don't see any damage to that car, so I have to assume this is just normal service for him. He's trying to play an interesting strategy card. 42 minutes to go. Keep an eye on that. But from all the drivers we've seen pit already, like John D. Allen and DJ Alessandrini, looking at about 28 seconds of pit service. I don't know if that's how long it takes to change a set of tires. You'd have to be pretty good with a rattle gun on what's effectively a road car. But you get a good crew here in iRacing, and you don't have to pay a whole lot for them either. So that's and you don't even have to pay for that set of tires either. So that's something that certainly will help him. So it's 27 seconds for Alex Coffer. He's back out there, and critically, of all the drivers who have pitted, he's ahead of the rest of them. So there's then John D. Allen, who's pitted, and who's ahead of DJ Alessandrini, who's also pitted. So that's going to be one to watch as we sort of have these drivers who've stayed out versus these drivers who pitted. I know if Coffer just felt like he was losing time in the pack battling, which is definitely what some of these drivers are doing, losing a couple of seconds a lap, trying to trade places back and forth.
I'm just watching Paul Darling here as he goes through the S's. He doesn't have any fear of taking a joker lap if it means not lifting. A man truly after my own heart as he flies off the track at the bottom of the S.
Yeah, and he's got. I think he needs to be taking those risks at the moment because he's got Nicholas Johnston now under 2 seconds behind his tail and continuing to close every single lap. So I don't know if Johnston's been maybe slightly kinder to the tires in these increasing track temperatures, or, Darling got a good breakaway at the start, wasn't losing time in the battling, but now Johnston has the clean air. He's gained another 2/10 since I called it out last, 1.5 seconds or so, Johnston on a tear towards the lead of this race.
Yeah, and I've just glanced over my telemetry here. We're up 7 degrees Fahrenheit on the track temp since the start of the race. And you got to imagine that since that's the average, the racing line itself is getting pretty quick, pretty warm pretty quick here, which isn't going to do much for these poor Solstice and their skinny front. It can be pretty easy to overdrive them and make great lap time over one lap. But this is a 60-minute race, right? We don't decide it in qualifying.
Yeah, and interestingly, they're also going to have a bit of traffic ahead of them in not too long. Danny Robinson and Mitchell Robertson. So that's something you get in every ChampCar endurance race, is plenty of traffic. Well, it's going to start about now for our leaders. I think Darling, how he negotiates that is going to be very, very critical. Albert and Hall not quite battling over third and fourth, and some of our other battles have spread out a little bit. Ellison not really holding up Chris Knisley at the moment.
And Alex Carford's taken over a slow Andrew Shembury. He just had a little exciting moment going into the braking zone there. I think he's trying to stay out of the way, but he needs to keep an eye on his braking markers.
So the lead for Paul Darling, 1.6 seconds as they're going to cross the line now. And a bit of traffic for him. Danny Robertson going to be first driver he approaches here. And don't know to what extent Robinson will see him coming there, make just a little bit of side swipe contact there. I think Robinson might have lost a little bit of control. Now yields to Paul Darling, who is going to come on through. And a big switchback from Nicholas Johnston means he loses much, much less time, positioning his car rather cleverly. Battle for the lead now down to 7/10, and will maybe ebb and flow a little bit in this traffic, but suddenly underneath 1 second for the lead of this race.
That's the problem with being the first guy through. They're never seeming to expect you, even though you do a little bit of math, and 20 minutes into a race, 25 minutes into a race, it makes sense that you'd be catching up to them. But Paul will grit his teeth and try and get back here.
Yeah, indeed. And that's what's going to be interesting from some of these drivers who've pitted a bit early. Will it put them deep in the pack and lose them a bit of time? Or, will it save them time that they delay catching some of this other traffic? It's really hard to work out the sums on that one, I think. And that's one of those things we're going to have to wait and see where everyone sort of ends up on it. What we definitely have had, though, is that's helped Johnston on this lap close the lead gap quite significantly. Into final hairpin. It's not the final corner because there's a kink between it and the start-finish line, but you kind of think of it as the final corner around here, and they're going to come to the start-finish line. And again, Darling's going to catch this next car in a very similar place to last lap. And someone leaving pit road. just in front of them as well. So big grids means big action all through the race, I think.
Ooh, and
Johnston
that got tight going up the hill.
Yeah, indeed. Johnston right at the bumper of Paul Darling. Very, very, very close for the lead of this race. 0.2 of a second, but that doesn't mean much when you can see the gap. Gonna take a look down the inside here, and Darling is going to lose again a little bit of time trying to put 17 of Mitchell Robertson a lap down. And it's so much easier for Nicholas Johnston. He puts his nose to the inside for the long downhill left, and he's through and into the lead. Will he get crossed back? Can he hold onto it? Darling sets up a very late apex, gets on the power maybe a little bit earlier. Johnston has the lead, but now he's going to defend the inside. Darling holds in the slipstream and then switches back across onto the racing line, tries to break deep around the outside. Again, he's going to have to set up an early throttle and a late apex, but I think Johnston just about has it covered, and he's our new race leader.
Yeah, and through all that, I think they've lost another second on Alex and Justin, who are back there lurking. If they're not careful going through traffic, well, those huge-ass drivers might get a little bit lucky. Looks like we've got a little battle going on between Tom and Chris Measley, who are jousting as they head into the S's. Things are getting a little tight there.
Yep, certainly. It's the final right-hander of these S's where I think a good run is very, very important because it can set up the move into that final hairpin. Pretty even between them this time. But Darling and Johnston are 1 and 2 diving onto pit lane together. So that's an interesting strategy call. Maybe they've seen how much time they were losing trying to put drivers a lap down and decided to call time on that. But interesting to see first and second onto pit road together.
Or maybe they're seeing the pair drafting behind them and don't like the looks of that. Alex Crawford checking in on the early pit stop strategy is going to be coming around here. He's had to battle a little bit of traffic on his own, which hasn't helped him, as we see that going through the S here. But it'll be interesting to see where he comes out relative to the leaders who just pitted.
Yeah, like 5 or 6 other drivers jumped in the lane on the same lap as well. So maybe we're seeing about how far these Pontiac Salsas can go on the reduced fuel before the drivers have to pit. A little bit before halfway, which is interesting to see, but maybe they're spending a lot of time full throttle around here. So pit lane, a busy place. Alex Albert and Justin Hall cycle through into the lead for the moment. And Johnston and Darling out and about 7 seconds ahead of Alex Coffard. So he's still looking very much in touch with the lead and almost, if anything, closer to Darling and Johnston than before he took his pit stop. So I think he's made that work relatively well for himself. We wait and see to the end of this lap. Maybe we'll see everyone else on the lane.
Yeah, and the difference in pace between fresh tires and old tires does seem to be becoming a little noticeable as Alex and Justin dive into the pits, taking the racing line all the way to the cone, because we're seeing little bits of contact here and there between drivers that are on the old tires and empty tank and other drivers who are pushing their luck a little bit by having pitted early.
So almost everyone on the lane right now. Albert, Hall, look for Ellison, Knisley, Daly in. We'll see if anyone can go a lap longer than these gentlemen. I'm not sure we'll see that. So now it might come down to the fuel numbers and how quick the tires can get changed to see everyone on the lane getting their car jacked up, getting a new set of tires. And I think there's just, maybe 5 or 6 good laps to the tires and then they get just a bit too hot. And the change of tires isn't really about, you've worn out a set of effectively road tires in this short distance. I think it's all about just getting a new cool set on really, really helps you. So out of the lane, Albert, again, still just ahead of Hall, but Darling and Johnston have come through, but only maybe a second, 2 seconds up the road. Feels like Albert and Hall have gotten a little bit closer. Darling has jumped ahead of Johnston. Darling's pit stop was about a second faster. They were close enough to put Paul Darling back into the lead, but now he's defending like hell from Johnston. Paul on the outlap takes a move on Alex Albert. All spicy in the top 5 here, where Alex Coffard now occupies 5th place. His early pit stop looking like a stroke of genius.
Yeah, and let's not discount the battles going on back in the pack. As Andrew Schembri has another little moment. Bradley Daly had a little mishap as he slid into the pit box and slid just a little bit too far. He actually had to back up, and that cost him a critical second, as it turned out, because Andrew Fawcett, who's gone all 4 off there, actually managed to make up a spot on him. So those two will be jousting, because I think Daly had a little bit of pace on Fawcett before the pit stop. But hey, fresh tires, full tank of gas, it's anyone's game, right?
Yeah, easy done getting a little bit too hot into your pit box and overshooting it. Can be dusty, can be slippery. There can be something down on pit roads. It always pays to make sure you hit those marks rather than coming in a little bit too hot. So that's pit stops done for everyone but 2 drivers, Cameron DeGroff and Nicholas Love, who I think we'll see soon. But those gentlemen seem to have managed fantastic economy from their vehicles. Maybe they were right in the middle of a pack. That'll always save you a little bit of fuel, picking up the slipstream and having to roll out of the throttle a little bit before the braking zones. We'll see them on the lane this time.
I'm not sure if we caught it on the main camera there, but Justin Hall has actually taken 3rd spot from Alex, which Alex won't love. And as he goes wide, maybe Alex will have a chance to right things in his eyes. No, not quite enough to be able to overtake there, but
it was up the top of the hill here on the outlap. Hall maybe caught Albert a little bit napping on the new set of tires.
Yeah, well, as long as they stay together and don't fight too much, it looks like Nicholas Johnston and Paul are pretty happy to just work together and get a little bit of gap back between themselves and the next two. And as you mentioned, Alex's strategy has worked really well, and it's managed to get him a pretty healthy gap back to Max Lufer, who was an early contender. He's fallen now back to 6th. Max Lufer will be pretty happy with his turnout, though, because he wasn't around for the first race, and he's managing to sit himself into a pretty comfortable top 10 position here, provided he doesn't have any dramas.
Certainly. So 3/10 for the lead of the race. Paul Darling, good job on the pit lane to get that lead back. And again, he's got that new set of tires now, and he's not looking particularly troubled by Nicholas Johnston. But if this goes the same way as the first stint of the race, we might expect to give it a couple laps time, and Nicholas Johnston just looks a little bit nicer on the tires. So that'll be one to watch for Paul Darling. Just not overdrive the car, which would be a very, very easy thing to do with Nicholas Johnston on your bumper, who's just set the fastest lap of the race so far. New tires working well for him right now, as well as obviously picking up a little bit of draft off Paul Darling. Darling feeling the need to defend, and that's where it's going to get him, is if he defends too early, overdrives the car too hard. Johnston going to look to the inside, and Darling covers it. So they are getting a bit feisty for the lead.
Yeah, and I'm just getting excited watching the middle of the pack here. I've just got a call from turn number 5, going back about a half lap. Thomas Dyer and Paul Wildridge rather had a pretty significant coming together. Left Paul Wildridge facing the wrong way and collected a few other cars there. Let's see if the replay man, if there are any cameras pointed in that direction. But yeah, exciting stuff happening back all the way through the pack, not just at the front of the field.
No doubt. We have that second look, Devon, and if you have any further thoughts on that, I guess now's the time for him.
Yeah, all different skill levels here in ChampCar, but gotta keep the throttle neutral when you go off into the dirt like that. So I think he just got the rear end a little bit loose and then clipped someone. Anyway, all's fair in love and war, and racing too. So we'll look back to the pointy end of the field and see if there's any battles of brewing.
I mean, Darling and Johnston still bumper to bumper. A bit of dramas for third and fourth, getting around some traffic in the final hairpin, but I don't think any paint was exchanged. But now they are side by side for the lead. Johnston's going to try and take the inside up the hill, which becomes the outside at the top of the hill. But I think he's almost clear, just not quite enough to close the door. Darling keeps the nose in it. Johnston has his nose ahead once again for the first time since the pit stop. So that is a change for the lead. Darling, I think, just needs to keep a calm head, just stick with him here for the moment for a couple of laps.
Now, I wasn't in the booth with you for the first race, but I seem to recall Justin Hall, who's having a really strong performance here in third place right now. He was there, wasn't he? Was there some sort of drama? Because from the standing sheet I'm reading right now, he finished in 33rd place, and this doesn't look like 33rd place to me. 33rd pace, that is, to me.
I don't remember the exact details of it, but there were indeed a few drivers who had some dramas there, like we saw on the start here. My two brain cells aren't firing together, and I can't remember exactly what happened to him. Change of position, 8th and 9th. Bradley Daly, Andrew Fawcett having a little race to themselves.
And you remember the name of the third guy in that battle? DJ Alessandrini, after being upside down on the first lap and then having to limp all the way back to the pits, is right there with them. He got pinched in the middle heading into the big sweeper there and had to dive on the brakes in the middle of the straightaway. That's always exciting. Kind of a funny comparison if you look at his shiny, beautiful Solstice compared to the rust bucket in front of him. Luckily, it looks like there was no lasting damage from his little roll on the first lap there.
Yeah, so Fawcett still holding off DJ Alessandrini, and Fawcett, I think, one of those drivers with no qualifying time potentially. I'm seeing him as having started in 30th place, now running in 8th. He's made his pit stop. Good quick pit stops. Oh, him and Alessandrini all the way out in the dust. Alessandrini doesn't appear to have picked up any on the paint scheme, but he chucks it down the inside, and great feel on the brake pedal and on the steering wheel, because I thought he might push a little bit wide, but he's done a good job to get that position up into 8th. Fawcett now only up 21 spots from where he started, but a good run back at Alessandrini. Is he going to have a look one way or the other? Is he just bump drafting him up the hill almost? He stays tight, then he's going to look to the inside, not close enough. But yeah, those guys battling pretty hard over 8th and 9th there.
Yeah, and going a little bit further back, 11th and 12th place is pretty hot, with 13th and 14th and 15th actually all involved in this battle. Tom Ellison, who is about where he qualified, is racing with two guys that qualified pretty far ahead of him. Chris DeShong in the red car was in third place when the flag dropped. I believe he was tied up in that DJ Alessandrini wreck as well as John Allen, who started in 7th and had to battle back after hitting the brakes, after hitting the gas at the drop of the flag. Looks like things have calmed down a little bit now, though, but we haven't talked much about Tom Ellison, who is one of the main organizers of this event, but that's usually a good thing when it comes to Tom. A quiet race, hopefully that means a successful race, and he could do with a solid top 10, top 15 finish.
DeShong here with the move on John D. Allen, who must have ran a little bit wide. Tom Ellison looks for the move as well. For a while, this was like a 5-car John D. Allen train, but DeShong, strong move there, and he goes up into 11th. So I feel like these guys have all made their pit stop, probably all battling to the end. What's hurting DeShong and John D. Allen, though, is how early they pitted, basically lap 1. Sure, they could then fuel the car to get to the end, but these guys behind them, Tom Ellison, Paul Johnson, Benjamin Shout, all got better tires on them, and I think Thomas Ellison going to show us that down the inside here, just a bit braver on the brake pedal and still turning the car into the corner. So
it looks like he missed a gear off the corner there, though, as John D. Allen drags him back down the straight.
Yeah, the one gear shift that you make in this car, and he's gone and not done it satisfactorily there, or decided that maybe he's going to let John D. Allen through, but probably the gear shift.
Yeah, and these guys are now headed up the hill. DJ Alessandrini is going to have to clear some traffic here. Danny Robinson causing us a moment into the corner. Looks like he's a little bit off the pace today. Must be something wrong in the setup of that car. But looks like Cofford and his shiny compatriot Alessandrini are going to make it through. Glancing back up towards the front, Alex and Justin glued together. Paul Darling, Nicholas Johnson glued together. No surprises.
Yeah, Johnston and Darling, despite their little battles they got going on, have pulled another 3 seconds or so on Hall and Albert. So those guys been trying to catch the lead, haven't quite been able to do it. I think, pardon, had to do a little sneeze there. Paul Darling, I think, doing the sensible thing at this point and just following Nicholas Johnston's pace, and maybe he'll try and save a move for a bit deeper in this race. I mean, feels like we've had a lot of action and we've still got 21 minutes and probably 12 laps of racing to go.
Speaking of Tom Ellison's quiet race, the way him and John D. Allen keep getting close together, it's given me flashbacks. These two race in a few other leagues that I'm a part of, and it's not uncommon to see them very close together. And there's a lot of hard racing going on, but definitely a lot of respect here, just giving each other enough room to sort of challenge each other as they go through that corner, while still making it a good race.
DJ Alessandrini, the Chrome Warrior, has just set his personal best lap of the race. So I was worried about the longevity of the tires from the guys who pitted early, but Alessandrini, I don't know if he's just been kind to them, or he picked up a good draft, or he just put all the sectors together. But yeah, I was worried for those guys, like DeShong and John D. Allen and DJ Alessandrini, but they're proven me wrong, which is nice to see.
Don't get ahead of yourself there. That's a red lap, not necessarily his fastest lap. I think that's the first clean lap he's set all race. Maybe not his fastest lap if you go back and look at the lap graph. But nonetheless, you could tell he's putting in an effort if he's getting 1Xs like that. As he lines up a pass here on Chris Knisley. Oh, and Chris is going to make it easy for him if he dives it in that deep.
Almost a little bit of contact on the exit, but Knisley just doing his thing there, holding his line. And again, some of these guys having some slight issues with the gearbox in this car. It's a unique transmission for racing, I think.
Yeah, if you ever feel one of these things in real life, you'll look for the notches and you'll keep waving it around while it's in gear like it's in neutral. You do not get a lot, and it's probably pretty similar on a sim rig that doesn't quite have the same notchiness as a real gearbox.
Smooth move from Alessandrini on the second time of asking, though, on Chris Knisley. Slots it on through. Andrew Fawcett, though, gets just a tiny bit closer. See what he can do in that battle. But I think Alessandrini just finally picking them off, now up into 7th. And you never know when the points might come in handy. So I'm not sure if he's going to find another 15 seconds or so up the road to Max Lupfer. That looks like a pretty big ask, but we'll see what he can do. And of course, you never know what will happen to your other competitors deeper in the race. So you just got to keep out there, stay on the lead lap. And we saw even a couple drivers run out of fuel, maybe 2 drivers run out of fuel on the last lap in round 1. So even there could be positions to be picked up. It's tortoise and hare sort of never give up stuff sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. And these guys are doing math in the back of their heads while they're trying to drive these cars. It can be pretty tricky to find out exactly how much fuel you need, especially when those pesky leaders go and find an extra gear and run a lap more than you expected them to. For anyone who's a big Coors Light fan or a big Chris Knisley fan, you might be feeling a little sorry for him. DJ Alessandrini swinging by him there, but I bet you he's feeling pretty happy with himself, considering he qualified 16th on pace and is now comfortably within the top 10. 15 more minutes to go as we head into the final quarter of our race. And the field is spread out, but there is still a few crucial battles within the points-paying positions.
Yeah, some big moves in our race so far. Our leader, Nicholas Johnston, started 9th on the grid, and boy, did he get a reasonable start from there. So now he's leading up 8 positions. Andrew Fawcett, no qualifying time, started back of the grid, now in 9th. And Alex Coffard started 11th, now in 5th. So some of those guys have made quick pit stops, kept it smooth and consistent amongst the traffic, not gone off the track too much, and made some hay while the sun shone.
It's a great day for hay. These guys here in I guess that's around 13th place there, are still nose to tail. But it looks like Kevin Binkley's driven up onto the back of Tom Ellis. I feel like Tom had a little bit more pace a couple laps ago. I'm wondering if while he was battling with John D'Allen there, he either picked up some damage on his front end. It looks a little crinkly from what I can see, or if he just burned off the front tires. You don't have all the same sensations in the sim as you do in real life. And these cars in particular have a really nasty ABS that'll kick in if you are, braking just a little too late into the corner. And it can really take some life out of your tires with the way ABS is handled. The sim as Kevin Binkley throws one up in the inside. That was a good move on Paul as he takes 14th position away.
Yeah, Binkley started in 5th, so we know he had good pace in qualifying. Found himself a little bit down the order. I don't know if he got caught up in some of those first lap issues, but he's moving back up through there now. What are you seeing, Deb?
I thought Benjamin was going to rejoin right in front of Lee Moulin there, or in front of Shane Cameron there, as he took a somewhat adventurous line through the road hairpin after the big sweeper there. But it looks like he's managed to rejoin into some clear track, lucky for him.
Binkley's forcing his nose down the inside of Tom Ellison on the pit straight. Tom Ellison sees him, gives him some room. Very, very sensibly, the self-preservation instinct kicking in there. So maybe 2 for 2 on one lap for Binkley here, moving back up through the grid a little bit. Pitted the same lap as Tom Ellison. Tyres should be the same age there. Binkley now in 13th. No changes in our top 5, but I think we're waiting maybe for the last couple of laps to see some desperation for the lead.
Yeah, and one thing that this iRacing sim is really, really good at is modeling the temperature and the pressures changing in the tire because of the temperature. So if Tom did put a little extra heat into those tires, he could be feeling the fronts going away a lot more than Kevin is, even though Kevin's recently done some big moves using the front end to hit. And it looks like Tom still will have more to say in this battle, I think, as he executes a pretty nice line there through the last corner.
Yeah, indeed. So I count 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 6 or 7 battles out there right now. There is, I think this switch to the Pontiac Solstice for some of the rounds is going to be very interesting. They seem to race very close together, even more slipstream dependent than the Mazda MX-5. So it's proving interesting to watch and rewarding drivers who have just a little bit of patience in traffic and don't get in over their head. Chris
Deschong, and John D'Allen are pretty tight here. I thought John was going to give it a move up the end. Chris Deschong, of course, giving me reminders of another De Jong that races in the iRacing series. Pretty well known one at that. Doesn't seem to have quite the same pace as the De Jongs in iRacing, but holding respectably there. It looks like even though he had that little drama on lap 1, he and John are having a good time in the middle of the pack. And at the end of the day, that's what racing in ChampCar is all about, right?
Yeah, indeed. It will be a cracking battle between them two.
I didn't see it, but I think Alex Cofford must have had some sort of issue. Am I getting this wrong? Yeah, Alex Albert has managed to overtake Justin Hall. I think that's happened in the last lap or so here. So I don't know what happened to Justin. Anyway.
Yeah, not sure. Those two are still close enough together, but Albert is leaving Hall just a little bit behind. What is happening, though, is Alex Coffard in 5th is I dare say, flying along. He's now just 2 seconds back off Justin Hall, so he's got a late race burst of pace there in fifth, which is interesting to see. I don't know where that's come from, but it's working well for him. He's only a couple laps away from being right on this battle for third, maybe make it a 3-car scrap for that final step on the podium.
Yeah, it looks like the only people faster than him right now are the two leaders, Justin Hall and Alex Albert, are suffering a little bit on pace, it seems, relative to Albert.
Fawcett and Bradley Daly switching positions for ninth. Take a look there, and Daly is all 4 tires off the circuit, and that's how you might lose one. He's got in a little bit too hot, and that's let the we're going to call it patina car of Andrew Fawcett on through. In fact, this is going to cost Daly a lot, because now he's back in the battle with DeShong and John D. Allen. DeShong's going to get through easily. John D. Allen ought to also have the momentum, but yes, he is indeed through. So Daly losing a whole heap of positions there.
Just jumping on board with Bradley Daly there. That minor contact with the wall looks like it might have just clipped it the wrong way. I think his left front tire is all out of sorts. He steers crookedly and crabbing down the straightaway. He's going to be kicking himself for that mistake and for not jumping to the pits right away.
Yeah, indeed. I'm looking at the replay of him and Andrew Fawcett through the S's. Daly has a ripper turn of pace, tries to get the move done. He just comes in too hot, big bunch of understeer, a little bit of contact. And I think it was the contact wheel to wheel with Daly and Fawcett that's given Daly the steering damage.
Ooh, that might get a little hot in the post-race chat.
I mean, 2 guys racing hard there, and it's the outside wheel of Daly that makes sort of contact with the door of Andrew Fawcett. And Fawcett with a clever livery that he can pick up all sorts of damage on that car, and it'll be difficult to tell. It's sort of camo for dents because it's just been sort of pre-wrapped with them. But yeah, Daly then picking up a whole bunch of steering damage, and he must have, just had the steering angle on, bit of force through the wheel at the wrong place at the wrong time. And these cars are normally a bit of a tank, but just not in this case for Bradley Daly.
Yeah, everyone that's been racing ChampCar for a while has seen. As Fawcett gets in way too deep there. Ooh, he completely missed his braking point. He must have heard us talking, commentators curse and all that. Anyone who's been driving ChampCar for a while knows that a tie rod end is pretty easy to bend. As I look a little closer at Fawcett's car, though, I do see that the left front corner looks like he's taken a little bit of damage on his car as well. So I wonder if maybe it's not stopping quite as well as it was before.
Certainly not optimally. Went and lost those 2 positions to Chris DeShong and John D. Allen, and John D. Allen almost giving a bump draft to DeShong across the top of the hill. They make the turn down into the infield.
Does it still count as a bump draft in the braking zone?
Yeah, I don't know, but now Fawcett's gonna come back down the inside, so I don't know what has gone on for John D. Allen there. Just not a good exit off the corner for whatever reason. Andrew Fawcett mixing his way back into this. Good exit from John D. Allen, nearly at the bumper of Andrew Fawcett. We've seen a couple moves be made into this hairpin at the far side of the circuit. Defensive line from Fawcett, and he's gonna hold on to it for the moment.
Just look at him.
Still Johnston from Darling, but here, what are you seeing?
Well, you can just see the way he's going through that right-hander. He's having to take an awful lot of lock to try and make it. I think he's scrubbing a bunch of extra speed off. And John D. Allen is getting hurt by this. He needs to get back around and get back on Chris DeShong if he wants to have a chance in the last 4 minutes here, because he's got maybe 2 more laps that he has a chance. Eight minutes left. Correction. Still 4 more laps. And in the solstice, it's hard to make a position.
Yeah, indeed. So Fawcett still trying to have this little battle with John D. Allen, and DeShong's actually not getting away from them a whole lot. Interestingly to see, John D. Allen puts his nose to the left-hand side coming up the hill, and this needs to be a decisive move. Otherwise, the other guy can defend it down the inside of the right-hander, but good move there. Smooth moves from John D. Allen. He gets back ahead of Andrew Fawcett, who would do very, very well to stick with this pack. Change at the lead, though. Darling back ahead of Johnston.
Yeah, and that was a big move up the inside, but Johnson was able to hold Darling off there. But we can expect a few more of those, I think, in the coming.
Sort of testing to see if that one will work on the last lap. So yeah, Johnston did then cut back underneath, grab the lead back. But Darling showed that there's ways to try and force a move around here, and he's right at the bumper. These guys are going to have 4 laps to go this time. Johnston runs a little bit onto the grass. Darling right behind him, not going to make the move into this final hairpin, which would be, I think, a solid place to try and make a move on the last lap. We'll see what ends up happening, but it is getting closer towards that crunch time for these two guys. 0.3 of a second still. They cross that start-finish line, and by all counts of the timing and scoring, 6 minutes, 20 seconds to go will be 4 laps.
Yeah, and I'm looking back through the field. I remember Thomas Elson and his quiet race. Geez, I should really stop talking about him because he's got Paul Johnson stuck up right behind him now. Both of them have been neck and neck on pace, and Paul Johnson looks like he might be lining one up here into the hairpin. Oh, ooh, Tom gives him some room, tries to cut back. Oh, and I'm not going to lie, Paul has executed that really nicely, parking it on the apex so Tom couldn't get back around him and get the runoff.
Yeah, so he grabs that spot off Tom Ellison. Missed where it happened, but John D. Allen and Chris DeShong have switched positions there. So their battle over 9th and 10th continues. I think there's a few of these battles that are going to come down to the line.
Yeah, and I don't want to make it seem like I'm not looking at the front there, as Nicholas Johnson was very wide coming out of the sweeper in the middle of the track there. All 4 tires off, but he managed to hold Mr. Paul Darling off. And seeing there Mitch Robertson braking just a little bit to let the leaders through. Good sportsmanship. That's what we like to see in a ChampCar series, and showing some real respectful driving so that these two leaders can have an epic battle in the last few minutes here.
Yeah, indeed. If you saw a cracking battle for first and second coming up in your mirrors there, very, very well done to just let those guys on through, let them fight their fight, and well, at least for a moment, you'll have the best view in the house of this battle for the lead. Tashong back past John D. Allen, so those guys, well, I say that, and John D. Allen back through.
Yep, and Paul Darling is just sizing Nicholas up everywhere. He seems to do maybe a little bit better through the middle of the corner than Nicholas is right now, and so he's looking for a spot where he can try and roll it a little bit wide. It might end up coming down to traffic because they do have a few cars in front of them in the last few or in the next few 100 meters of the track. Nicholas makes a little brake check, and Paul Darling gets right up on his bump. Let's see what this drag race down the strip has in store for us.
This is where Darling made his move earlier, so you see Johnston sort of taking the middle of the road and then onto the normal line for the brakes. Johnston, I think, still going to hold on to that one, but he's aware that that's one of the places that Darling is looking to make the move, and I think that dive earlier from Darling might actually pay some dividends here, because now he's made Johnston think that any corner he could try and make a bit of a dive, and he might have to defend. But Darling, bit of rally cross there. The grass and the dust isn't too slippery around here in this car, but it's certainly not the quickest line to run all 4 tires off every corner. He manages to stick it close. He takes a look for the final corner just to give Johnston something to think about. Doesn't make the move there. 2 laps to go this time, and again, there'll be just a little bit of traffic for these guys. This has been an almost race-long cat and mouse game between these two, and it's great to see.
Yeah, so who will get it? The guy with the qualifying pace, or the guy with the confidence on the first lap to keep it matted as everyone was flipping upside?
Here we go, little S's towards the top of the hill, and some of the guys love to grab a bit of curb through here. Nicholas Johnston's definitely one of them. It's if you had a good camera and a good placement, you'd get a good shot of that, no doubt. Johnston and Darling, this is two drivers I don't think either have won in ChampCar iRacing series before. So I think we're set for a new winner, whoever gets it. Very differing lines coming down the hill here, and I think, whoa, Darling gets a bit of dirt and he's all sideways there. He's going to lose a whole heap of time for that, and maybe this is what Nicholas Johnston needs. What about the traffic? 136 car of Skylar Sisson going to be the next car they catch. If he doesn't get back for the end of the race, that might have been Paul Darling throwing the race just 2 tires on the dirt, trying to take as tight a line as possible. And then the rear tried to step out on him, which is quite an achievement in these cars. Skylar Sisson well off the racing line, on the slow pedal, trying to let our 2 leaders through. But now Nicholas Johnston has maybe the biggest lead of a long time, 2.5 seconds. That might be the race there.
Luckily for us, Alex Albert and Justin Hall in 3rd and 4th place have really tightened things up. As they were coming down through the sweeper, we'd have been hard-pressed to fit a pack of carts between the 2 of them. Alex and Justin are good buddies, and as you can tell from their paint schemes, they're on the same team. But believe you me, Justin is a guy who likes to win. And so I think he will give Alex a fair shot as they come around the hairpin onto the final lap here.
Yeah, so this will probably be our best battle towards the end then, as it's looking, because Justin Hall just a couple tenths behind Alex Albert. Anything could happen in the final lap. The clock's going to tick down soon. The white flag has been waved to our leaders and this battle for 3rd. Whoa, they make a little bit of contact. Alex Albert might have missed a shift at the top of the hill. Justin Hall gives him a good whack on the rear bumper, and I hope there's not too much damage to either of these guys. Is a battle shaping up behind them as well that's going to join this, where Max Lutfer has found a bit more speed deep in the race, is now trying to harangue Alex Coffard. So anything could happen in our top 5 right now, and that's what we'd like to see, battles all through the field.
Yeah, and we'll have a few as we come to the line here. We'll jump back through the field, but let's keep an eye on these 2. Out front, Nicholas Johnston still is keeping his 3-second lead back to Paul Darling. That set the tires in the grass seems to have been the dagger in Paul Darling's race there. Justin Hall's doing everything he can under the brakes here to try and get caught up. And Alex Crawford's licking his chops. He's been faster on the last 2 laps than these guys, but he's going to need some help. Some little door bang might be enough to get him up into the lead.
Here we go, final corner for Nicholas Johnston, and a little mistake from Paul Darling gives him the breathing room, and from 9th on the grid, Nicholas Johnston, well, he hasn't reached the checkered flag yet, so I'd hold off on doing too much weaving and celebrating, but here is the line. And Nicholas Johnston is going to be our winner in round 2 of ChampCar iRacing Series. Paul Darling is going to grab 2nd. Let's chuck our eyes to 3rd place.
Oh, and Alex Albert
drag race
all the way to the wall.
There between 5th and 6th. Coffard and Lutfer, and Coffard's going to squeeze Lutfer all the way to the line. And Alex Coffard will just hold on to 5th place in that one. What about John D. Allen and Chris DeShong 9th and 10th?
Looks like DeShong's running wide, so John D. Allen
not close enough.
Yeah, unless he makes a big mistake here in the hairpin, which he tried to do, he'll be able to hold on to that. Going back through the field, I want to say 13th and 14th, Thomas Ellison and Paul Johnson stuck together through the last few laps there. It looks like Tom Ellison was able to make the overtake on the final lap here to get back up in the 13th place. He'll be taking that away. And then going back through the field a little bit further, Ben and Shane Cameron must have had a little bit of a shunt on the last lap because they were glued together through the final 10 minutes, and now there's a few seconds between them.
Yeah, and our last car on the lead lap is 20th place James Volak, and he's just stayed on that lead lap, so he's got one more lap to complete. I'm seeing his pit stop time of 37 seconds means he's probably well and truly fueled for that. So we'll wait on those remaining cars to come across the line. But yeah, what a well-measured race from Nicholas Johnston. I mean, obviously Paul Darling had the qualifying pace, but Johnston there just doing well, solid laps, solid pit strategy, and no errors. So all our two remaining drivers on the lead lap, Shout and Volak, are going to cross the checkered flag there, and we'll look at our finishing order and results, where Nicholas Johnston is our winner, 3.6 seconds clear of Paul Darling. Final man on the podium, Alex Albert, just holds off Justin Hall there. Fifth, Alex Coffard and Max Lupfer had a drag race to the line there, but Alex Coffard was not going to be scared out of his top five. DJ Alessandrini, well, he was the points leader coming into this race. Have to crunch the sums on where everyone stands after this, but 7th place means he doesn't lose too much ground in that battle. Chris Knisley gets 8th, John D. Allen in 9th, Chris DeShong 10th place, Andrew Fawcett, big run up through the field, 19 positions gained into 11th place, and then Kevin Binkley in 12th, Tom Ellison 13th, Paul Johnson 14th, 15th going to be Shane Cameron, Lee Moorleman 16th, Paul Wildridge 17th, Michael Ogren 18th, Benjamin Shout for 19th, and as I said, last car on the lead lap was James Volak. To save my voice, Devin, have you got the rest?
I can do that for you. Mitchell Robertson in 21st, first car lap down. Bradley Daly, 22nd. Jacob Hilly, 23rd. Cameron DeGroff, 24th. Nicholas Love in 25th. Heading a few laps further down into the order, we got Skylar Sassoon, who finished 2 laps down in 26th. Danny Robinson, who finished 4 laps down. And Andrew Chambry, who finished 28 laps down. And I believe, if I'm looking at my results here correctly, Jordan Babcock doing the half race special. He's getting that entry into the draw for a full ChampCar entry fee by completing his 50%, finishing 14 laps down. Don't have to win the race in order to be entered to win. And Jordan Babcock's taking advantage of that, finishing in 29th place. Behind him, it looks like we've got a few other cars that had some trouble during the race. Matthew Thompson in 30th, Thomas Dyer, who got tangled up in some stuff early, in 31st, as well as Drew Cleaver finishing in 32nd place. He was a casualty early on, unfortunately, of those battles that were going on at the front of the field.
Well, Devin, thank you for that. And now we've managed to find our race winner, Nick Johnston, from 9th on the grid, just staying clear of the carnage. Was that the strategy?
Well, I didn't exactly expect to have a huge pileup on lap 1, so I can't say it was a strategy. It was really just dodging things that happened in front of me. I kind of would have thought in an hour-long race that everyone would be a little bit more cautious there, but I think I heard from someone that they missed a shift, so those things happen in these kind of cars. I mean, I missed my fair share of shifts during the race, but it was a good time. I had a lot of fun driving the car. Once I was able to clear some of that traffic and hunker down and try to run Paul down, I was able to get into the lead prior to our pit stop, and I was going to try to actually undercut with tires. We ended up pitting at the same time, and he came out in front of me. And we were so close on pace. Like, I had sections of the track where I was faster, and then he had sections of the tracks where he was faster, and it all just came down to being clean. And he made that one mistake with 2 to go in the carousel, which dropped him back about a second. And then he had some bad luck with lap traffic. That was it. Done deal. So it was a fun time. Good race. Enjoyed it.
Well, this is first ChampCar iRacing series race that we've used the Pontiac Solstice, and you've mentioned some of the little quirks of the car with the gearbox basically only using 3rd and 4th gear. But how did you find the tires? How did you find the track? Definitely looked like there was some benefit, at least initially, to grabbing a new set of tires. Was that your feeling?
Yeah, for sure. Tires made a difference. You probably had 5 to 7 laps of really good tire grip, and then you started to run the fronts off of it. Car was set up very conservatively as far as setup wise goes, so you were never going to have any problem with the rear tires. It's all front kind of pushing away. But with the amount of fuel we had to take, it was almost a no-brainer to take tires, even if it was a couple seconds longer. They were that much quicker.
Anyone you want to shout out? Are you a current ChampCar racer or just racing in the Sims?
Just in the Sim series. I'd like to race some of these events. I've done a lot of real life racing myself, so be cool to get in one day, but gotta find a way to get into a car. Really just want to shout out to DJ and all the guys over at the dojo and Grid Life for reminding me about this race, so I can come have some fun with them. Fortunately, DJ got caught out there at the beginning because I think he would have been another one there just having a good battle with.
For
Well,
sure.
thanks so
Thank you
much for
very
coming
much.
in. And thanks, Devin. Thanks so much for coming in and I guess sharing your perspective with us there. I hope we're going to see you for some of the remaining rounds of this championship because you factor in 4 drop rounds and you're right in with it still with a chance.
Yeah. Luckily, I found out that I've only missed 1 round so far, and with 4 drops, I should be all right. We'll see how the rest of the season goes.
Thank you very, very much for not just racing with us, but also finding the time and have a chat with us afterwards.
No problem. You guys have a good night. We'll see you next time.
I'm looking Devin, and I'm not sure if the person I'm looking at is our 2nd place finisher, but I know we can find our 3rd place finisher. Do you know anything I don't?
Nothing on my end.
Well, then let's go to 3rd place, man. Alex Albert, defending champion. Good points haul out of 3rd there, Alex.
Yeah, I'm happy with the result. Didn't have enough pace to win this week, so I think that was the best finish we could get. And yeah, just glad to get the points and move on to the next track.
Big mixed bag results up in the air using the Pontiac Solstice. It's brought some new names to the front, and some of the guns we're used to, DJ Alessandrini, John D. Allen, having a bit of a struggle, maybe not for pace, but just consistency. We're going to be using this car again at some later rounds in the championship. What's your feeling, strengths, weaknesses, likes, dislikes?
Yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of the Solstice. It's I think I like the Miata a little bit more, but I'm a big fan of using multiple cars. It gives more of the champ car renter type of atmosphere. So I'm a fan of it, and we're headed back to VIR South where I got my first win of the season last year. So hopefully good things will happen again.
Well, 2nd round, still a solid grid. Traffic, a bit of an issue at some point for some of the leaders. From your driver's seat, how did it go out there?
Yeah, it was the start was a little mixed up. I'm not sure what happened there. It seemed like the leader brake checked us, and then it caused a bit of a concertina effect, and some cars got turned around. So hate that happened, but yeah, it's a very tough track. It's the corners flow from one to the next. It's much different than someplace like Watkins Glen that are just single corners. So if you're a little offline here, it can cause you time through the next couple corners. And but lots of good racing out there. Had lots of fun battling with my teammate Justin Hall. Great to see him have such strong pace here lately, and Alex Cofford also in the top 5. So a good showing for Team Hugh Jassy. And guess we'll have to wait for the points to come out. But I think this should put me in pretty good position with 2 third places.
I got great news for you, Alex. Your 2nd finish here has put you up to 84 points and given you the lead. 2 points over DJ Alessandrini after his unfortunate problem on the first lap of the race there, with John D. Allen in 3rd and Alex Crawford in 4th. Kevin Binkley rounding out the top.
All right, well, good deal. So, yeah, heading to my home track and the track where I got my baptism by fire in real life champ car. So, yeah, really excited about the season. Glad to see a big turnout. I think we had 31 on the grid, and this isn't one of the most popular tracks on the series. So, yeah, I big things are happening for the series. Talked to a lot of guys in the Discord tonight. Even met a new racer that he said he quit kart racing and decided to get a real car off of watching some of our videos a few years ago. So, yeah, I think the series is working out.
Fantastic to hear you. Fantastic to hear that, and fantastic to hear from you, Alex. Congratulations on third place in round 2, and we do look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks, David, and thanks for all that you guys do, and thanks, Devin, for popping in and helping out tonight.
Do what I can.
There we go. Thank you so much to everyone who's tuned in to a broadcast here, round 2 of ChampCar iRacing series. Keep an eye out because we are back with coverage of every single round for the remainder of the year. And like Alex said, heading to the VIR South layout for our next championship round. So we've obviously got a very interesting title hunt on our hands, as well as some great racing for everyone in the field. So we'll be back then. But in the meantime, do keep an eye on Team Huge Ass and do subscribe to us here on YouTube. I've been David Haynes. It's been Devin Peters alongside me, and our fantastic production and pictures has been Michael Derby, who we really, really appreciate. Until next time, goodbye.